movie. I was given an advanced screener, and I had a chance to watch it. It is...
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I have a nice 4K TV at home, so I watched it on the 4K TV, which is what it's been restored to. It is stunning. So let's just go over the movie and getting it restored and getting it up to sort of 2019 technology standards, and then let's talk about the performance.
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, once we've located the original 35 millimeter stock, which was really a great thing that we shot it on, you know, motion picture film and cameras, was a great, was a lot of money was spent capturing that show. So, and it turned out it was money well worth spent. You know, and once we located it, it seemed natural now to update it and put it on the widescreen format. You know, I got to see it for the first time, well, in a long time. I mean, I saw it years and years ago, but I'd kind of forgotten about it, to be honest. But it wasn't until Eagle Rock restored it digitally in 4K and did it on the widescreen format that I saw it in a cinema in Sydney all by myself, because I was the only band member here in Sydney at the time, and someone had to see it and give it the thumbs up or, you know, comment on whatever, and I was blown away, and I kept looking around thinking, like, why am I the only one here, you know, but I still clapped. And so, you know, it just made me feel like I was in the audience, you know, and the great thing about it is it gives everyone an opportunity for one night only to see INXS with Michael Hutchence, just like, you know, it was a snapshot of what we were like at that time, and wow, it was really impressive for me. I mean, I hate blowing my own trumpet, but hey, it was just the six of us on stage, no grand pianos or giant things floating in the sky, or, you know, backing vocalist dancers. It was just us, and we entertained that crowd, and man, the crowd went off. It was a joyous moment.
It really was, and let me talk to you about playing these big crowds, because here it is where you're doing your own stadium show, and it's, you know, 70,000 people, and it's become legendary. But before that, 5 years before, you're on tour with Queen on the Magic Tour. What was that experience like? Because you have, you know, one of the greatest frontmen, if not the greatest frontman in the history of rock, and Freddie Mercury, and then you've got his successor in Michael Hutchence coming up. What was that like, that tour? And you know, it sort of prepared you for this Wembley show, right?
Yeah, you know, I suppose it did. I suppose it did prepare us in a way, you know. I mean, the thing was, the amazing thing about Queen was they sort of were making a comeback, you know. They'd been big, and then Live Aid really propelled them back into the limelight again. And until Live Aid came along, they'd really just been living off touring in South America, which was why we sort of started going to South America in the first place way back in the 80s, was because we'd seen the success that Queen had there, and we thought, well, you know, we're in the Southern Hemisphere. We're not so far from, well, we're far from everywhere, actually, but we should do the South American thing too. So we did, and to this day, INXS is huge in South America. But so we were touring the UK and Europe specifically with Queen, and doing these huge stadiums. So the first time we played Wembley Stadium, we'd been doing Wembley Arena, which is still big, but it's not the stadium, and was opening for Queen, and I was standing where Brian May would stand on stage, stage left, and, you know, I was having to dodge things that people right down the very front were throwing, because they were hardcore Queen fans.
You mean the traditional piss bottles of the UK?
No, it was more like sandwiches, you know.
Okay, good. All right, well, because they're notorious.
Cucumber sandwiches, scones. It was a euphemism, really. But, you know, it was kind of like, you know, we were trying really hard. It was daylight, broad daylight, to win the audience over. And we must have done a pretty good job, because 5 years later we came back and we sold that sucker out, you know. So, and that was a great feeling. And you know, watching and hanging out with, they were really friendly, and they really sort of took us under their wing, which was really endearing to us. And to this day, I always it made us treat everyone that worked and opened for us differently too, because it was so nice to be treated like that. And they would take us out for dinner, just the guys in Queen and us, just the six of us, and they were obviously close as people. And it was like, wow, here's another band that's like us, you know. They're all like each other, you know. They're all friends, and they got this great front man, you know. And Michael's going to be a great front man, you know, or he already was, or whatever. And then we did the Montreux pop festival in Montreux, Switzerland, with them, and I ended up in Freddie's hotel room suite with Michael and my brother John and Freddie's personal assistant, and Freddie had a microphone and was playing some of their new stuff and getting Michael to sing with him, and it was just me and my brother in the room and Freddie's PA guy, and there's Michael Hutchence and Freddie Mercury singing with their noses an inch apart into one microphone with nobody, and it's like a pinch yourself moment, you know. But and then lo and behold, we ended up there, and it all seems to make sense now looking back, but at the time we didn't sort of put the two and two together. But you know, it was just one of those things. It was great times.
A great moment, and that sort of duet story. I've heard it before, and I can just imagine what that might have been like. I mean, Jesus, and too bad we didn't have iPhones or whatever back then to get that stuff captured.
I know, right?
Oh, God.
But you know what? It was so great that we didn't too. You know, there's no one holding one up in the show. You know.
Well, it kept some of the secrets, but and keeps the mysticism of the whole thing going. Just real quick, your brother or Andrew is going to be releasing a solo album in 2020. New singles out now. Where are you in terms of new music? Are you going to be doing something? Is the band going to be doing something? What are sort of your plans moving forward? We sort of see what Andrew's doing.
I had 4 years ago, I had a really bad accident on a boat with my left hand that got caught in an anchor chain winch, and it basically completely mashed my left hand, which is the most important hand really for playing guitar, and severed my ring finger completely. And it had to be through marathon surgery events sewn back on. And that ring finger is predominantly made of metal. It doesn't, I mean, it's got skin on the outside of it, and it looks like a real finger, but it doesn't really bend. So I'm very limited with playing guitar at this point. I mean, things may change, but I'm doing things on the computer really, and programming and more than anything else, probably looking towards producing other bands. And you know, I've been, and also, you know, managing INXS's past still requires quite a deal of time, and digitizing everything and going through all our old videos and getting them up to speed, and it's never ending. But as far as the future is concerned, 2020 is going to be very interesting. There's quite a few things sort of bubbling away in the back burner there that I can't really talk about just yet because I don't want to spoil the surprise.
Right, fair enough. And I was going to bring up the injury. We know you're suing the boat company, but I want to sort of talk to you a little bit in the context of Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath. He famously had an accident, and he had a prosthetic, if you want, built for his finger, which gave him this very unique sound. And is there a chance that you might come up with something like that and get back to playing? Because I'm assuming you must miss playing.
Oh, I miss playing terribly. But, you know, it's really hard to imagine. I mean, like Tony Iommi must have been a lot younger, I think, when it happened to him. And, I mean, I got to play guitar like I'm used to. I've grown up playing guitar since I was 8 years old. And it's like the muscle memory and all of that. I go to play guitar and it just doesn't sort of happen for me, which is, it's too upsetting to even want to go there. You know, it just blows my mind, you know, that I can't play guitar the way I used to. So I don't go there. But, you know, as time goes on, you know, that, you know, things may change, but for now it's just not in my not in my radar at all. You know,
Right.
I look towards, you know, appreciating music and doing what I watch a lot of YouTubes these days, you know, and remembering why it is I like music so much and my influences and getting down to that sort of thing. I'm putting together a VJ list and, you know, I like putting together song lists and stuff like that for events and stuff like that. So I'm still heavily involved in music and spend a good portion of my day up to my ears in music. And I still have all my instruments and love them dearly.
Yeah, and as far as Tony, I think his injury happened when he was like 17 or something, so he had a chance to sort of, relearn the whole thing.
That's a big difference.
Big
Boy,
difference.
That would have been a killer, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me ask you about this, the last album in 2010 here, this original Sin album where you had Ben Harper and Pat Monahan and J.D. Fortune and a bunch of others. Just an incredible concept. And to hear, you know, Ben or Mylène Farmer or Rob Thomas doing your songs, it was something special. Talk to me about that concept. And is that something that you want to see yourself doing again? And just talk to me also about the power of the material, that it's so good that, yes, it's great when Michael sings it, but you can bring in these other cats and it still sounds amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that it's the you know, the power of the songs themselves, Mitch. The actual songs stand up for themselves. You can hear that in particularly by the number of times "Never Tear Us Apart" has been covered. You know, it's been covered by so many people. It's, you know, which is really a great compliment. But you know, when I hear Joe Cocker sing it, you know, or Paloma Faith, I'm kind of like blown away. But let alone Ben Harper, you know, who sings it with great passion. But that was really good fun to make that record. And there are some other performances by some other artists that are still in the vault that we never released because for whatever reason they had albums coming out or there was contractual issues. But we've still got their performances and they're by some pretty amazing people that didn't even, you know, get on the record. But and you know, some of them are some of my favorite performances of those songs, and you know, it's an incredible thing to have, and they will see the light of day eventually. And these are the sort of things, you know, we did so much. We worked with so many different people. We had Tom Jones sing on tracks with us, you know, which was great. I mean, working with Ray Charles, you know, on "Please You Got That Need" was another great experience, and doing Letterman Live with Ray. You know, it actually was just bizarre playing in a band with Ray Charles in it. You know, it was like another pinch yourself moment. But so, you know, there are things that happen during all these things that are in the outtakes and stuff, and I immerse myself in a lot of that stuff these days so that eventually the fans will be able to hear it.
Well, let's hope it's... I'm losing my voice. Let's hope it's sooner rather than later.
So hold
on, let me put you on pause for a second. Okay, good. Just real quick, Rockstar INXS. There is a Canadian connection, of course, J.D. Fortune being from Toronto. Talk to me about that concept of that show and how revolutionary it was, and also how important it was to sort of let fans know that, hey, this band still exists. And I'll ask you one other part with that. I met J.D. on the street in Toronto, and I said, boy, that was great that you... And he said, I knew I was going to win. They had told me in advance. And I was like, that sounds a little bit strange. But how...
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. So how sort of... No. Okay, so let me ask you the straight-up question. Was the show honest in a sense that you were actually having a talent?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that was the... Look, Mark Burnett in particular, let alone he was like, you know, adamant about, look, it's U.S. law, that this has to be a proper contest, and it has to be, everything about it has to be legit, and, you know, there's no way you guys can pre-decide who's going to be your singer and all that. So, I mean, there may have been, within maybe management at the time, it wasn't the management we've got now, but there may have been people around, not the producers of the television show, and us guys never really discussed it at length. Andrew, my brother, wanted a girl to win, And the rest of us were really just what you saw on the television show was exactly what it was. We really didn't know. And in fact, I was worried that we weren't going to find anyone. And then it just came down to really, at the end of the day, JD seemed like the right guy. So it was a really organic affair. And so it was 100% legit. And you know, that was kind of a groundbreaking show for that reason, because prior to that, there'd been things like Idol, I think, and I can't really remember what these shows were, these Discovery talent shows were called back then, but most people came out and it was like karaoke, you know, they'd sort of sing to a backing track, or, you know, we actually had a band, a really good band, that rehearsed, and the auditions started way before we started the production of the show. So, you know, Kirk and I went round the world to all the original auditions, and that was heavy, you know, so where there was some real fruitcakes and terrible talent applying, but we would go to 2 days out of 3 or 4 or 5 in all cities all over the place, and then so it was whittled down to like 200. In LA, we were sat there and we watched the 200, and that was whittled down to 50, and then somehow we got it down to the final 15 that made the show, and that's when we started recording the show. So all of that pre stuff had involved months of work, and it was, you know, looking back, Andrew and we were all writing material for the album that was going to happen when the show concluded, and we didn't know if we were writing for a girl or a guy or what, you know. So, and it made it was a unique way to write a record, and you know, when I look back, my wife says to me, "This is look, it's a favorite record," which says a lot. She's been there since the beginning. She's the only band member's partner that's been there since the beginning, and she was there since the beginning. And you know, and now I look back, you know, and it was a really great record. I don't know, it's just a shame it was kind of, I guess, unappreciated in some ways. It depended, like in the States and Canada, it aired on main commercial television. In the UK and Australia, it was on sort of hard-to-find television channels, which for me was a crying shame. I wished it had been on commercial television in Australia, because Australia would have loved that show. And so it started the whole thing with people singing with musicians, you know, and that really made a big difference. It was really good fun to make that show.
It was, and I have to say, I watched it religiously every day, or every Monday or whatever it was. Yeah,
we recorded 3 days a week, the show, with the Sunday, I think, show being live, or you know, on a 5-minute delay or whatever it was, and we actually had to decide, you know, who was going home based on votes. And what we thought, in a little room, like on a quick break where we had no time at all to really discuss it at any length. And then I had to learn all my lines about why we were hiring or firing, you know. And I had, with Mark Burnett looking me in the face, you know, just me, he and I in a room going through my lines. And I'd have to walk out there and remember like 2 A4 or US letter length pages of lines, and I had to remember them with only 5 minutes to prepare, and go out there and try and get it right. There was no teleprompting for me or anything like that. There wasn't time. So, you know, it was very intense, but period of time for me, and a big learning curve, and you know, really good fun to do. It was so different. It was so different from touring endlessly, and it was a great way to try and look for someone that you know, came from somewhere different, you know. It was a great experiment, and I'm really glad we did that.
I'm glad too. I thought it was fantastic, and it brought your music to the people, like you said, every week. And I know we have 20 minutes, and we're at 20, so I'll go with this last question. After Michael, you went, of course, with John and Ciaran and JD and Jimmy and Terrence and so on. Talk to me, Talk to me about a little bit about that, because in one sense, you've got Michael, who's a voice and a performer and a front man you just cannot replace, but also at the other time, you want to move forward. Were all these lead singer changes just because you couldn't get the right voice, or you just felt, you know what, no, we can't just replace Michael and go on with the next 20 years and pretend that this is the new What was sort of the thinking in that?
Well, it pretty much started out after Michael died. We thought, no one really wanted to do anything really, because it was all just too sad, and we lost our brother and mate that we'd grown up with since we were kids, and just being together in a room reminded us who was missing, and so it was really, really hard to do anything, to be honest. And but then I think it had been about a year, and I can't remember how it came about, but Terence Trent D'Arby was a friend of Michael's, and I, in fact, Michael and I think Kirk had been to see him at his first US show, performing at a club. I can't remember which one it was. I should remember. I saw the birthday party there too, in LA on Sunset, and somehow we ended up with Terence opening a Stadium Australia, which was the stadium that was built for the Olympics here, and there was a big major soccer game on, and we were the half entertainment with Terence Trent D'Arby, and it was the first thing since Michael had died, and Terence just tore up the stage, and he performed his ass off. It was fantastic, and it was all a bit of a blur though, because we weren't sure if we were going to be doing anything, why we were doing it, but it kind of felt good, but it kind of felt strange. So we then just sort of went quiet again for a bit after that, until, we all started feeling like, I want to play, man, how do you feel, Johnny? Yeah, I want to play, yeah, we all wanted to play. We all just wanted to play, and we'd achieved so much, and Michael's legacy needed to be, we needed to remind people of who Michael was, and the only way we could do that was by, you don't stop being a family when a family member dies. You still keep your surname, you don't change it because so-and-so is no longer with you, so we did the right thing as far as we were concerned, and who was anybody else to tell us any different? So, and then John Stevens came along, and we performed in a 2,000-seat club in Sydney. It was like a theatre, and it was a really cathartic moment. There were I think there were tears within the band. John's a great singer. He's not a particularly sort of front man like a Michael Hutchence or a Freddie, he's just a really, really great singer, and he sang really well, and that brought a lot back, and we did a big long INXS set, and we could see people in the audience were very emotional, and it was like that once we had a taste of that, we continued on with John for 4 years doing that, and that led to, and when John went his own way, we decided we wanted to try something different, and someone came up with this idea, I think it was Kirk, about finding the singer through a television show covering, all bases at once and testing them out by, firebrands, So that's how that came about.
And it turned out great. Tim, I know we're out of time, so I'll remind folks, Live Baby Live, check out INXScinema.com for all ticketing and other information. And as we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup. Absolute pleasure.
Avec plaisir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
À la prochaine.
Great to be able to chat with you, Mitch.
Thank you. And great pleasure chatting with you, Tim. And again, à la prochaine. Thank you.
All right, au revoir.
Cheers. Bye-bye. I was given an advanced screener, and I had a chance to watch it. It is...
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I have a nice 4K TV at home, so I watched it on the 4K TV, which is what it's been restored to. It is...